Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 24th December 2024. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and the Indian Express newspapers which are very relevant for your exam. In our first topic we will look into some recent developments related to goods and services tax. We will also look into some other wider dimensions like issues pertaining to GST. In our second topic, we will look into various aspects of an important intergovernmental organization, that is World Trade Organization. Then in our simplified section, we will take up 5 articles and we will try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers which is going to be very crucial for your upcoming prelims 2025 exam. So stay tuned. So our first topic is an uncertain tax, that is related to goods and services tax. The context of this topic is that in its 55th meeting of the GST Council, it deferred taking decision on several pressing issues. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, government policies and interventions, constitutional bodies, and syllabus of your GS paper 3, fiscal policy, growth and development. So there has been various issues that were in front of the GST Council on which decision was pending. For example, initially there was a recommendation to set up an inter-ministerial panel which will look into various aspects of GST regig and GST rationalization, which will make the process much easier for the GST Council. But there was no decision taken on that. There was several decisions pending, other decisions like the GST that is charged on the insurance premiums, that was also not looked. But yes, GST has taken various other decisions. It have given various other clarifications. For example, it gave the clarification like the GST that will be charged on the salted and spiced popcorn will be 5%. The pre-packaged and labeled popcorn that is 12%, and the popcorn which have sugar content as well as the chocolate content, the GST that will be charged on that will be 18%. Earlier also there was a confusion related to the GST that was charged on the frozen parathas and the normal rotis or the parathas. So what happens when there is a confusion related to all these things, that this particular product will come into which particular GST slab? It becomes really difficult for the businesses to comply with the GST, and it also creates issues in the ease of doing business. And this GST, when it was launched in year 2017, one of the main reason or one of the main objective of GST was to improve the ease of doing business in India and also to create a common market in India, right? But we are in 2025, 8th year since it was implemented nationwide, but still there are a lot of issues that are plaguing, which we will be discussing also in our later part of discussion. This particular topic, goods and services, is a very important topic of your UPSC exam, and that can be also seen from the UPSC mains exam, that in past few years there has been various instances where UPSC has asked questions in your mains exam as well as your prelims exam. So let's look into some basics first. So this GST bill was introduced in year 2014 and it saw the day of light by the Constitution 101 Amendment Act 2016, and it added Article 279A for the GST Council, and it provided for the central GST, state GST and the integrated GST. So let's suppose if there is a product A which is being produced in UP and that is being consumed in UP, then the CGST and the SGST will be applicable. But if it is being produced in UP but being consumed in the Maharashtra, then the IGST will be applicable. So IGST covers the interstate trade, whereas the SGST covers the intrastate trade or the trade within the state. If you look into various taxes which has been subsumed under the GST, various state taxes like the VAT or the sale tax, the entertainment tax, that is the tax that was earlier applicable on the ticket prices of the movies, etc. The luxury tax, the tax on the lottery, betting, gambling, octroi, and the purchase tax, whereas various other central taxes like the central excise duty which was applicable on the manufacturing of the products, additional excise duty, the additional custom duties, that was imposed on the import of the products. Then special additional duties of the customs services tax, like the tax that was applicable when we were going to dine in any restaurant. So before GST, the service tax was applicable, but that has been again subsumed under the GST itself. GST came with this 279A article through this amendment, and this GST Council actually takes the overall decision related to the GST, and the chairman of this GST Council is the Finance Minister of the India, and the members of this GST Councils are nominated by the state governments, and the decisions will be taken based on the majority, and that majority is 3/4 of the majority. And in this GST Council, center have 1/3 voting power and state have 2/3 voting power. So you can say that again GST Council is one such institution which is promoting the cooperative federalism in India, because it is giving voice to the states, it is giving representation to the states also, right? So what are the features of the GST? First, it is applicable on the supply side, right? When actually the goods or services is being consumed, only then it is being applicable. Earlier, let's suppose the manufacturing happened, the excise duty has to be paid. But again, now the GST will be paid only after the product is being consumed. Also, it is destination based taxation, means the tax is given to that particular state or place where that particular good or service is actually being consumed, right? And there is also the facility of input tax mechanism. Let's try to understand this with a very basic example. Suppose this is a packet of biscuit. When this biscuit was made, it has used some flour, or it has used some grains. So let's suppose the GST that was applicable on the flour that was used was 5%, and the person who sold this flour to this company ABC Limited, which is manufacturing this biscuit, right? So this flour was sold at rupees 100, right? And the 5% tax was paid. So this ABC Limited will pay 105 rupees to this person A, who has sold this flour to ABC Limited. Now let's suppose ABC Limited used this 100 rupees flour and they have made 500 worth rupees of biscuits. Let's suppose 18% of this 500 will be 9 rupees. So this particular ABC Limited will be liable to pay 9 rupees, but he had this 105 rupees which he has paid for buying of the flour has already incurred a tax of 105 rupees. So this ABC Limited can take input credit of the earlier paid tax, that is 5 rupees. So in short, what we can say, effectively ABC Limited will be paying the tax 4 rupees only, because 5 rupees tax was already paid. And similarly, in every value addition process or every chain that is happening, whatever the tax that will be applicable, if there was already tax paid on that component, or so that can be taken back, right? So why it is happening? Let's suppose if we are not doing that, then we are levying the tax on whole 105 rupees, then that is happening, called as the process of tax on tax. And the removal of tax on tax or removal of cascading effect was one of the main aim of the GST, and which GST is doing by this input tax credit mechanism. The advantages of the GST is that it has helped in increasing the revenue of the government manifold. For example, if you can look that average monthly GST collection that in last 4 years, okay, in 2023-24, it was 1.68 lakh crore, right? Also, in if you look into the overall GST collection in 2023-24, it was 20.18 lakh crore, and which has helped in significantly and which shows that the revenues of the government has increased significantly. And with the increasing revenue, the government is leading to the government is getting help in providing proper services, proper schemes to the government. For example, for the welfare of the people, whatever the schemes that are being run, whether it is Manrega, PM Kisan, etc., the money is coming from these things only. These are the revenue sources. Also, it helped in eliminating the cascading effect. Earlier, there were different kind of taxes and there was no mechanism of input tax credit mechanism. So already there was a tax that was levied. When there will be another tax that will be levied and there is no facility of input tax mechanism, then that is cascading effect or tax on tax that is happening, and which is being eliminated by the GST. Also, it creates a common market, because here whatever the GST rate that has been decided by the GST Council, which has representation of the finance minister as well as the state nominated members, that GST will be applicable throughout all the 28 states as well as 8 union territories. So in a way we can say that there is a common market. That is, there is at least to a larger extent there will be a common price for goods and services throughout the country. Earlier there were specific state related VATs, value added taxes. So there was a different price in different states for a particular good also, because of the different kind of taxes that were being levied by the state. But now with the coming of the GST, we have a common market, common price to a larger extent. It has also helped in ease of doing business, and that has been also reflected by the ease of doing business report of the World Bank, in which India gained its 63rd rank, right? Because here the compliance burden with the businesses improves. They don't have to run from pillar to post to ensure that whatever the different laws are there, or whatever the different rates were there, the state taxes, central taxes, local taxes, they don't have to comply all that. Only they have to comply with the GST. So the process becomes easier, the compliance becomes easier, and then the ease of doing business also becomes easier. Also, it has helped in reducing the corruption and the leakages. Here what is happening, that the technology is being used. There is a GST portal on which the GST filing is happening. The input tax credit that is being taken, that is also being taken from that with the help of that portal itself. So the human interference is very low, and that is why it is the Inspector Raj, which was earlier called as, where there was a lot of corruption due to the collusion of the corrupt officers, that has been withheld to a larger extent with the coming of the GST, where technology is being used to a larger extent. But if you look into the various issues, the first important issue is the multiple tax rate, which we have discussed. For example, again in the initial discussion that we have taken, that the taxes that are being levied on the popcorns or of different categories, there can be one tax, and that will make the compliance easier for the businesses. And of the 115 countries, only 5, Ghana, Italy, India, Luxembourg and Pakistan, have more than 4 GST slabs. And this has been given by, this data has been given by World Bank's India Development Update 2018. 28 countries has 2 rates, while 49 levied a single rate. You can see that India is one such exception with few other countries where we have such a higher tax slabs or high tax slab rates. So again, it creates issue in the compliance, and we have the rates of 0%, 5%, 12%, 18% and 28%, and every meeting some particular component from any one component is shifted to other, or from one particular slab to it is shifted to another. So it creates issues in the compliance as well as ease of doing business. It also creates unnecessary confusion in the economy. Also, delay in the GST Council meets. Although in past few meetings we have seen that the council meetings are happening normally, but earlier in the initial starting of the 2024, there has been delay in the council meetings, and council meeting is one important body which is taking the decision related to GST, and when it is not meeting frequently, then in a way we can say the dynamism in GST is getting lost, and the needs that are arising with the implementation of GST, that is not being fulfilled. Also, the lack of coverage. A majority of the components which forms a very important or major component of our economy, like the electricity, like the petroleum product, or like the liquor, all alcohol, all that is outside the GST still, okay, because the state feels that they will lose a major chunk of their revenue which is coming from the taxes on the alcohol, petroleum, etc. So when the coverage is not comprehensive, when all the products in the economy are not under the GST, in a way we haven't been able to create a common market or a national integrated market, right? Also, the delay in the compensation cess. What happened? till COVID-19 everything was fine, but after COVID-19 the revenue sources of the government has taken a hit, and the central government find it very difficult to compensate the states with the compensation cess that was promised to be paid to the states. And that's why there has been delay, there has been lot of mounting dues with the central government of the states, and that has further created strains in the relationship between the states and the center. What happens that to bring the states on board with the GST, they were promised that they will be provided a compensation cess to ensure that whatever the revenue that are being lost by the states while coming on board the GST, that their revenues doesn't get impacted with the GST. So to compensate their pockets, or to compensate the loss that is happening in the revenue pockets or the revenue sources of the states, this GST compensation cess was given. Also, the technical issues. Generally, it has been complained by the businesses and other experts that the GST portal is not very smooth. There has been glitches, there has been delays in getting the input tax credit, etc. And that further creates issues in the GST implementation or compliance. So what should be done? What are the possible solutions? First, the prudent rate rationalization. The GST Council should sit properly and they should think that what should be the rate for this particular component by considering all the factors, that is the factors related to the inclusive growth, poverty and everything. For example, it should be seen by the GST Council also that whether if there is a product, let's suppose this biscuit itself, that whether it is the need of the poor people or the even if we'll levy 28% GST on that, how it is going to impact the common people. And if the decision will be based on these factors by taking all the consideration, I think and that is also thought by the major experts that a better rate rationalization will happen. Also, the inclusion of the excluded items like petroleum, electricity, etc. So until and unless we will bring them into the GST regime, we will not be able to create a common market. Also, it will help in addressing the issue of the inflation. Okay. Because what happens, let's suppose the petroleum is outside the GST regime. So when, despite let's suppose the decrease in the crude oil prices, if there is not increase in the or not decrease in the duties that are levied by the states and the centers, and they have further increased that. So the decrease of the crude oil prices will not lead to a decreased prices of the petroleum products with the common people. But if we will have a common GST, it will somewhat help in reducing that petroleum prices also if there will be a reduction in the crude oil prices. Also, that will help in streamlining. As of now, there are different duties that are levied by the different states. And because petroleum is one such product which is also being used by the transportation sector and which is also transporting the vegetables, the daily goods, etc. So if the prices of the petroleum is very high, it is impacting the food inflation, it is impacting the normal inflation in the economy. So if we will be able to rationalize that, or if we will be able to bring back that in the GST itself, that will help in addressing the overall issue of the GST, also overall issues of the inflation also. Also, the system simplification, that there has been various issues, pending issues related to input tax credit, or there has been various fake invoices that has been uploaded time and again. Also, various shell companies, etc. were part of this, which were taking the benefits. All that needs to be tackled well by ensuring that there is a proper oversight mechanism. Also, there is a proper feedback mechanism based on the users, and that whatever the feedback that is coming, that is incorporated well. That will help in simplify the GST filing process and the timely dispute resolution also related to input tax credit or other things. Also, the rationalizing exemptions. There are various exemptions that are given to various companies or other people. So that is leading to a lot of loss of revenue to the government. That needs to be rationalized that will actually help in getting a better revenue with the government. Also, the better revenue sharing with the panchayats and municipalities is also one of the way forward, because these panchayats and municipalities do not have any source of themselves which with the help of which they can go for welfare programs. And these panchayats and municipalities are actually they are implementing the programs, right? So until and unless the money will be with them, it will be very difficult for them to implement the programs properly. So the important thing is that they should also, the revenue should be shared with them also, to ensure that the welfare programs are given properly to the ultimate beneficiaries. A mains practice question that you people can write from this topic is that this, please try to write this question. So our second topic is the GATT-ification of the WTO. The context of this topic is that a write-up has appeared covering several aspects of World Trade Organization. So Mr. Prabhas Ranjan has written about the various issues plaguing the WTO. For example, the vacancies that are there in the appellate body, which has been somewhat hindered or which has been blocked by the United States, because US thinks that WTO is not such a body which is serving the interest of whole world, but it is serving the interest more of the developing countries. And WTO is one such body which takes decision based on the consensus. So until and unless there will be consensus between all the countries, the decisions cannot be taken. And there are various issues, or there are various disputes between the countries related to several components or several aspects or several mechanisms that has been provided under the WTO, for example, most favored nation or anything else. So when there is a dispute that arises and there is a decision that is given by the panel on that dispute, the parties have the facility to appellate with the appellate body of the WTO. But when the appellate body do not have any members to look after those disputes, somewhat it is leading to a WTO being a dysfunctional or defunct body, and which is what US is thinking WTO to make, as per the writer of this editorial. So let's try to look into the basics of the WTO. That general agreement on tariff and trade, it came as an instrument to look into overall trade of the world, to facilitate the trade between the countries. And this has came after the Bretton Woods conference that concluded in 1944. And this conference was happened especially after the conclusion of the World War II, to see that how the overall economic growth and trade can be ensured in the parts of the world. It led to coming of the organization like IMF, World Bank also. And since this GATT was only an instrument, not an institution, it was institutionalized by the World Trade Organization. Under this, there are 164 states which are the members and the custom territories. 98% of world trade is being looked by the WTO. It provides a package of agreement which sets international trade rules in the field of the trade. For example, MFN status or most favored nation status. That if there is a special facility that is being provided to any one particular state, the country should extend this facility to all the states, right? There should not be discrimination between the countries. Also, the platform for multilateral negotiations aimed at development of international trade rules and the reductions of the trade barriers. For example, there may be a country where manufacturing sector is very good. There may be another country where agriculture sector may be very good. But they both want to negotiate a terms that, okay, we will levy this much amount on the of the tariff or the custom duty on the manufactured products, and this much of the custom duty on the agricultural product. So WTO is one such place where all that negotiations are happening, and which is leading to ensuring a more robust trade between the countries of the world. Also, it provides for dispute settlement systems by the dispute settlement bodies, panels, as well as the appellate bodies. Also, it provides for source of information that ensures transparency in the application of the trade policy measures by all the members. That if WTO have some ruling related to that, countries cannot come with a policy or domestic policy that is not in sync with that decision of the WTO or the rules of the WTO. In the WTO, there is a ministerial conference which is the highest decision making body, and it meets biannually. There is a general council which oversees the day-to-day operations, and it is the authority to act on the behalf of the ministerial conference. There are other important institutions like dispute settlement panels or the bodies which examines the trade disputes. And then there is the appellate body which reviews appeals from the dispute settlement panels, and it plays crucial role in interpreting and upholding the WTO rules, whatever the rules that has been made by the WTO. For example, in India, Supreme Court interprets the constitution or the various laws, whether they are in sync with the provisions of the constitution or not. Similarly, that interpretation is happening by the appellate body of the WTO in context of the world trade. Some important ministerial conferences, for example, in Doha Development Ministerial Conference that happened in 2001, that was a very important. Here, the Doha Development Agenda came, and it helped in addressing the trade barriers. Agricultural subsidies was one such important aspect which was discussed in the Doha Development Agenda in 2001. In Cancun 2003 conference, there has been a push towards the trade negotiations that was promised in the Doha, okay, and it has ended in a deadlock over disagreements on the agricultural subsidies. Means countries have decided that they will talk on the agricultural subsidies and the market access related to the agricultural products. In the Geneva 2009, it focused on the trade facilitation and the need to conclude the Doha round. Doha round is still not concluded till 2025. And no major breakthrough was happened in Geneva round also. In Bali 2013, it adopted a package which included agreement on trade facilitation, agriculture and developmental issues. It was somewhat a one step in fulfilling the vision of the Doha Development Agenda. Also in Geneva 2022, it happened after the COVID-19. It majorly addressed the global health crisis. Okay, the supply chain disruptions that has actually happened after the COVID-19. It tried to address that, and it has also provided the temporary waiver on the COVID-19 vaccine patents to actually fulfill the needs of large-scale vaccine supply that was needed to address the large-scale amplification, large-scale disease of this COVID-19 throughout the world. For example, there are some TRIPS regulation that focuses or that looks after the patent things, but that things there was temporary waiver that was provided to actually fulfill the needs of the COVID-19 vaccine. There has been trade related aspects of public health, how that can be improved, etc. And fisheries subsidies was also discussed to a larger extent, but still it couldn't reach to the conclusion. What are the various issues that are plaguing the WTO? First, the stalemate that is there in the trade negotiations. That has started from the Doha round, but still it couldn't conclude, right? Because the WTO functions based on the consensus, and countries are not coming on any consensus, whether it is related to agriculture subsidy, whether it is related to fisheries subsidy, whether it is related to e-commerce. There is no broader consensus that is being reached in the WTO, and that is leading to a situation of doldrum in the WTO. Also, the dispute settlement system crisis, and this is because of the vacancies that has risen in the WTO. And as per the writer of this editorial, this particular blockage by the US started from Biden administration itself, and it continued till now. The trade protectionism, that tariff war that is going on, that the China will impose some of the duties on some products from the US, and US will do the same thing on the products coming from the China. So this tariff war that is happening, that is making the WTO in a sense of no use. That when two countries will be doing what they think is correct, so what is the purpose of settling or having a body which is deciding on the global trade rules, right? And the countries are thinking to protect their industries, right? To protect domestic industries. They want to handhold them, and that's why there are several products on which high import duties are applicable, which is against some of the rules of the WTO. The lack of consensus on the e-commerce still. With the globalization and global trade mounting, the e-commerce has gained a major chunk of the trade between the countries. But still there hasn't been any broader consensus that is reached on the e-commerce between the countries. Also, the limited influence in reforming the global supply chains. Because what happens, this is a supply chain. Okay, let's suppose this is producer. This is, let's suppose, the processor. Let's suppose this is the wholesaler. Let's suppose this is the retailer, and let's suppose this is the consumer. Let's suppose the till processing it is happening in China, and after that it is coming in India, coming to India. So from processor to reach to the wholesaler, it may take lot of time to ultimately come in Indian market. Why? Because there may be some tariff barriers, okay, which is clearly visible, that is custom duty, etc., that is levied. There can be some non-tariff barrier also, like that what should be the quality of this product which is coming in India. For example, few months back, the Indian spices, masala from India, Everest and MDH were returned back from Singapore and various other European countries. Why? Because there was high availability of ethylene oxide, which is a component which is generally used in masalas of the India. And the European countries said that this ethylene oxide is making these masalas not ready to be eaten, not fit to be eaten, right? So this is the quality component is, or the sanitary and the phytosanitary measures is a non-tariff barrier. And WTO to a larger extent hasn't been very successful in addressing these issues or the components related to non-tariff barriers, because they are not visible properly and they keeps on evolving, they keeps on changing. Apart from that, the COVID-19, the Russia-Ukraine war, Israel-Hamas situation, all these further created the supply chain disruptions, which was not, in which the WTO couldn't find itself comfortable to address that. So what should be done? First, a dispute settlement mechanism reforms needs to come. That, let's suppose a decision that is coming from the panel, either that can be binding on the parties, or there should be a mandatory provision that at least there will not be a full-fledged vacancies in the appellate bodies. Rather, minimum number of members should be there in the appellate body. It will help in ensuring that WTO doesn't become defunct. Also, the addressing the agricultural subsidies, because what is happening, let's suppose the MSP that is being provided in India, why that is happening, and that is one of the major contention that is brought by the various developed countries in the WTO. Why MSP is being provided by the Indian government is because a major chunk of our population is dependent on the agriculture. More than 50%, almost 50% of workforce is dependent on the agriculture. So it becomes very important for the government to look for the welfare of the farmers. It becomes very important for the government to ensure that farming is remunerative, and that is why they are providing this MSP, right? So the needs of different countries are altogether different, and it cannot be overlooked. So there is need for a proper consensus and negotiation on agricultural subsidies and fisheries subsidies, where there is issue that what is the sustainable level of fisheries. For example, some countries who have a larger coastal areas, they are overfishing or over exploiting the marine life. So some countries are saying which is not sustainable, and it have a wider environmental concerns, and that needs to be addressed. Again, the blame game will not yield result, but better would be that countries will have to come on the table and they will have to negotiate. Only then that will help in giving us better results. Also, improving market access for developing countries. There has been a less market that is available for the developing countries in the developed countries market. That developed countries will have to open their doors for the markets from the developing countries, because it will help in better market access for these countries, and obviously it will help the developed countries to get the products at a better competitive prices. Also, the issues of the non-tariff barriers needs to be negotiated, needs to be discussed WTO at large, and there should be a clear cut objective criteria that this much component or these are the factors which needs to be considered while imposing the non-tariff barriers. Also, the e-commerce and the digital trade is also one such area which needs to be discussed, because it has taken the global trade. It is a major component of the global trade nowadays. A mains practice question that you people can write from this topic is this. In our simplified section, our first topic is protected area regime. And this protected area regimes comes from the Foreigners Protected Areas Order 1958. And why it is being withdrawn from these states? Because of the security implications that is going on in Manipur and the states bordering the Myanmar regions, where we have seen a larger influx of the immigrants, especially after the political uncertainty and the situations that has arisen in the Myanmar. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, government policies and interventions, and this has appeared in today's Hindu, page number 8. So context is that on December 17, the Ministry of Home Affairs reimposes this protected area regime in the states like Manipur, Nagaland, Mizoram, to restrict and monitor the movement of the foreigners. So first thing you have to understand that protected area regime mainly looks after the foreigners' movement and travel in these areas, whereas there is another permit, that is inner line permit, which looks after the movement of the nationals or the citizens, right? And now on the foreigners who are visiting these three states would have to seek prior permission and protected area permits from the government. And this circular was earlier relaxed to provide three states, and this has been withdrawn. Why it has been relaxed earlier? Because this protected area regime was earlier also, then for a brief period it was relaxed, and then again it is being reimposed. What is happening? That earlier this was relaxed in these states in December 30, 2010. In wake of improved security situation in these states, also government wanted to increase the tourism in these states, right? And initially it was for 1 year, and subsequently it has been increased to further years, right? And what you have to understand that why is it is happening, that Chief Minister has also attributed that ongoing violence in the state to the outsider and the foreign hands, that people who are coming from the Myanmar region or from the bordering countries, they are creating a situation, law and order situation in these states. A military coup that happened in Myanmar in February 2024, there has been an influx of undocumented migrants, almost 40,000. And the Chief Minister is saying that they are one of the important reason, they might be one of the important reason for this situation. That is the ethnic conflict that is going on in the Manipur for past few months. So how this protected area permit can be obtained? Let's suppose there is a foreigner who wants to visit these areas. So how he can obtain this protected area permit? This permit can be secured from Indian missions abroad itself, that is the home country of that particular visitor who wants to visit these areas, Ministry of Home Affairs, the district magistrate where the person is visiting, resident commissioners of state, or the home commissioners or foreign regional registration officers. Okay. Earlier, citizens of Afghanistan, China, Pakistan and foreign nationals having their origin in three countries would continue to require prior approval from the MHA. Only then they will be given this PAP. So first, let's suppose they want to get this permit from the district magistrate. So first they will have to get the clearances from Ministry of Home Affairs if they are from Afghanistan, China, Pakistan. Only then they can get that certificate from the district magistrate. All foreigners visiting these states will mandatorily register themselves with the foreigner registration office of the state or the district they visit within the 24 hours of their arrival. They will have to register themselves. So let's try to look into this basic difference between the protected area permit and the inner line permit. So as discussed, that this protected area permit gets its legal recognition from the Foreigners Protected Areas Order 1958. And inner line permit can be related with Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation 1873. The protected area permit required the foreign nationals to visit certain sensitive areas, right? It is more looking after the aspects of foreign nationals. It is issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs, state governments, or other bodies which we have discussed. It is valid for specific time period as well as specific designated areas which is being visited by the foreigner, and it is mainly applicable in northeastern states. It is not applicable in Arunachal Pradesh, rather it is applicable in Nagaland, Mizoram and Manipur. Also, it requires registration at the local authorities upon the arrival, whereas inner line permit required for Indian citizens to visit the restricted areas. Here, it is issued by the state governments in specific northeastern states, and it is mainly aimed at protecting the indigenous cultures and the local population. What is happening? There are some tribal communities or the primitive people or the local people who have this apprehensions that if more and more migrants will come to our land, they will take the land, they will take the job, and they will also in a way lead to erosion of their culture. That will also lead to erosion of their culture. So to protect their culture, and to some extent to protect the jobs and the lands of these peoples, this inner line permit scheme, which has restricted the movement of the ordinary citizens or the normal citizens in these areas which has been designated as under inner line permit. It is enforced in regions like Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, etc. It prevents excessive migration into the protected areas, and it can be obtained from government offices or online in some states. It requires registration upon entry into the region. Next topic is that center scraps the no detention policy for class 5 to 8, and it lays stress on the remedial measures. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, education, government policies and intervention. This has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 12. What happened earlier? After the Right to Education Act came, there was a no detention policy, okay, especially for 6 to 14 years child, right? So if a person or if a child is failing in class 5, he cannot be denied that he will not go to class 6. Let's suppose in the annual exam or the final exam of class 5th, he failed. The student cannot be devoid of going into the class 6. This is what no detention policy was, that no child will be detained on account of not fulfilling the required criteria, not qualifying a particular exam which is needed to qualify a particular year or particular class. And why this was done? Because there are government feel or the policy makers felt that there is some section of our society which is not well to do, which do not have proper resources to qualify these exams properly, until and unless there will be some time that will be given to them. So if we'll detain them, they might drop out from these schools, they might leave the schools and colleges in future altogether. So that is why this no detention policy came. But again, when it came, it created further issues like that has been highlighted by the organization Pratham NGO, where a class 2nd or 1st child couldn't read, a class 5th or child cannot read class 2nd or the 1st text. That showed the quality of the students that these schools were actually producing. Why? Because we have no detention policies. We cannot fail the students. A student will anyway go to the next class. But when he is only being promoted to the next class without the knowledge that he should have the prior class, obviously he will not give good results, or his level of the academics will not be very good. So various states have already scrapped this no detention policy, but now the government has also scrapped this, which will be applicable to Kendriya Vidyalayas and various central government run schools. Why? But when the Right to Education Act said that there will be no detention policy, how the further some states have scrapped earlier itself? Because education is under the concurrent list, so state can also come with their own laws on the no detention policies, and that is where some states has come. Even after this policy of today, that center said that they are scrapping this no detention policy. Some of the states like Tamil Nadu said that they will not scrap this no detention policy, and they will come with their own state education policy, because they have also not accepted the national education policy. So here what is happening, right? That the center has done away with this no detention policy for class 5th to 8th, paving way for schools to hold back students who are unable to clear the end examination. If a student is not clearing the end examination, these students can be held back. They will be given proper hand-holding. They will be provided with proper support, and then the class teachers will ensure that then they go to the next classes. After this, they will be given 2 months of the time in which they will be provided with proper knowledge, proper support. Again, there will be exam that will be conducted, and if the student will qualify that exam, then the student will go to the next class, and else they will remain in the same class. Also, that after this scrapping of this no detention policy, the center have also given several guidelines, instructions, that it has said that when the child is held back, the class teachers shall guide the child as well as the parents if necessary, and provide the specialized inputs for identifying the learning gaps at various stages of assessments. That it is saying that, let's suppose the first facility was given to give the exam after 2 months. Even if student couldn't clear within that, then give a proper counseling to that child as well as to that parent, the parents of that child, that okay, these are the learning gaps. That let's suppose the child is not, the child was not very good at maths or any one subjects, and if we'll give 1 year of time to this child, probably he will be very good at maths for the rest of his life, rest of his career. If that kind of counseling will be given, otherwise what will happen? There might be a case that child may get more fearful with the studies. He or she might be intimidated with the studies. He may leave the studies, or his parents might have a negative image of that child, and they may they may have a bad thinking about that particular child. So to prevent that, instruction has been given that there should be a proper counseling of the child as well as of the parents. Again, the rules were already amended. The amendment was already done in Right to Education Act in 2019 itself. But the rules hasn't been notified till now, and it has been just notified. Also, the specialized inputs needs to be provided. There should be a special focus of these students. They should be looked after properly so that their needs can be addressed, proper support can be given to them. Some of the prelims pointer that this Right to Education Act 2009 came into effect on April 2010. It ensures free and compulsory education for children aged 6 to 14 years. Now you tell me that which particular article of the Constitution talks about that free and compulsory education for children should be given between age of 6 to 14 years. Act also applies to all schools in India, both government as well as the private, except for the certain exemptions that has been provided to minority institutions, etc. Also, the private institutions should or they must reserve 25% of seats for economically weaker section people, the people who are coming from the economically weaker sections. Focus is on quality of the education, mandating a specific teacher-student ratio and infrastructure standards so that students gets interest in the education rather than being intimidated with the education. Children cannot be held back or expelled until the completion of elementary education, that is class 8. This was provided in the earlier act, but now this has been changed. And the states are responsible for monitoring implementation of the act, ensuring the compliance with the proper guidelines that they have to frame, that they have to give time to time to these schools. Next topic is related to a very important scheme of the Government of India scheme, that is SVAMITVA Scheme. The context is that Prime Minister tells the ministers to attend the property card distribution event on the December 27. So what is this scheme? Before looking into this particular topic relates to your GS paper 2, government policies and interventions, and this has appeared in today's The Indian Express, page number 8. So this SVAMITVA Scheme, or the full form is a survey of villages and mapping with improvised technology in village areas, which is a central sector scheme. Means 100% contribution is from the government of India itself. Whereas if there is a centrally sponsored scheme, there is a fixed module that will be followed, that this much contribution will be from the center, let's suppose 60%, or this much will be from states, let's suppose this will be 40%. So if it is also being the scheme is funded by central as well as state government, that is centrally sponsored scheme. But in a case of central sector scheme, 100% contribution is from the government, its central government itself. And this was launched in year 2021 with the objective to give ownership of property in the rural inhabited areas. The method here that is used, mapping land parcels using the drone technologies and providing a record of the rights to the village household owners with the issuance of legal ownership cards. That it will provide the record of the rights, that that these are the people who are the actual rightful holder of these parcels of the land. It is being implemented by Ministry of Panchayati Raj, State Revenue Department and State Panchayati Raj Department as well as Survey of India. What are the various benefits? First, it will act as a property. The property will act as a financial assets. Let's suppose this is person A. When he will get this right of ownership and he will have this card, this particular card can be used as a collateral to get loans which can be used for various works. Also, the determination of the property tax. As of now, lot of property tax cannot be taken from the persons because there is confusion that who is the actual owner. When by the scheme it will be decided that who is the actual owner, the property tax can be levied properly. Also, it will help in increasing the liquidity of the land parcels. As of now, when there is a confusion, there is a litigation related to the ownership of the land parcels, it decreases the liquidity, that less number of land parcels are available in the market. But when we will increase the liquidity, when liquidity will be increased in the market, more number of land parcels will be available in the market, it is somewhat going to help in increasing the liquidity, or more number of land parcels will be available in the market, and that can actually help in also addressing the high prices of the real estates. Also, it will help in providing the accurate land records, and which will help in litigations and further pendency in the cases. It will help in reducing the property disputes, which is also creating law and order situations in various states and parts of the states, or the litigation that go on for the years, that all that can be addressed well. Also, it will help in better Gram Panchayat development plan, that there are some of the land that is community owned or there is no owner of that land, that can be used for the better benefit of the Gram Panchayat itself. For example, some gym can be made on that or something like that. So in a way, we will have a better Gram Panchayat development plan after coming of SVAMITVA scheme, because we will have a clear idea that who is the owner of one particular land clearly. Our next topic is Spadex Mission. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3 Science and Technology, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 11. The context is that ISRO will end its year 2024 with key Spadex mission, the launch of 2 small satellites to demonstrate docking in space. You have to understand the docking in space. What is docking? In simpler term, you can understand this with the parking of your car. When you park your car in your parking area or in your porch area, so how you adjust that to your car to that parking area so that it remains to that position comfortably, that you can say is the docking of the satellite, right? Here the docking is a process where 2 satellites are aligned and then joined in a space, a necessity for missions that the space agencies hope to achieve in future, such Chandrayaan 4 or setting up the Bharti Antariksh Station. What is happening, that let's suppose tomorrow when the crew module will go, that there will be a module that will bring these people to the Bharti Antariksh Station or the low Earth orbit, then that will be detached from that capsule where the people are staying. But after some time again, that module will have to be attached with that capsule itself so that it can bring back those people to the Earth itself. So here India's workforce PSLV C-60 is launching this 220 kg satellite in a 470 km circular orbit, with the launch vehicle providing a small relative velocity between the two. Within a day, the two satellites will build up a distance of around 10 to 20 km between themselves. So what is happening, that first the propulsion system on the target satellites will be, so first the PSLV will launch this. Two satellite will build up a distance of about this 10 to 20 km between themselves. They will be separated. Then the propulsion system on the target satellite will be used to prevent the satellites from drifting further apart. That, let's suppose these two satellites have moved. Now there is a propulsion system, or you can say a kind of magnet that is used in this particular satellite, and that is actually helping to this particular satellite not going beyond this limit, right? In a simpler terms, that there is a person who is attracting this person so much that this person will not go beyond the eyesight of this person. That is happening. That both satellites will continue moving with the same velocity at a separation of 20 km, and this is known as far rendezvous. That the process is known as the far rendezvous. That when they will achieve this distance of 10-20 km, this satellite will not go beyond this. Rather, they will move for some time for this 20 km distance itself between the two satellites. Then the chaser satellite will then continue to approach the target satellite. This chaser will approach the target, progressively reducing the distance between them, right? That it will reduce to 3 km and then docking together. They will dock together. Once the satellites have docked, electrical power transfer between the two will be demonstration. That power transfer will happen with these two satellites when they will dock together. They will also demonstrate the control of both spacecraft together, and then the satellite will separate and start operating their payloads. They will then separate, and whatever the payloads that has been given, for example, some kind of high resolution camera has been onboarded, all that will be used after they get away from each other after this process of docking, and whatever the payloads that are given, whatever the components like camera etc. that are there in those satellites, that will function normally. So it is mainly aimed at autonomous space docking technology, and which is going to be very important for our crewed mission that will send in the later part of years, right? And the launch vehicle was PSLV C-60. These have two small spacecraft, Chaser SDX-01 and Target XDX-02, and it will be very critical for our future lunar mission, okay, manned lunar mission, as well as for the development of Bharatiya Antariksha Station. And this separation dynamics and the docking and demonstrations we have well discussed. Next topic is related to Typhon missile system. This is related to your GS paper 3, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 40. The context is that Philippines has said on Monday that it is planned to acquire the US Typhon missile system as part of push to secure its maritime interest, sparking warnings from China of a regional arms race. Earlier, when this Typhon missile was used in the defense exercise between Philippines and the US, China has created a warning. China has came with various warnings, but still the Philippines is going to acquire now these US missiles to ensure that their sovereignty and integrity is intact. Also, Philippines has bought BrahMos missile from India itself. And the US Army had deployed this mid-range missile system in northern Philippines earlier this year for annual joint military exercise. This we have discussed. So what this Typhon missile is, it is a strategic mid-to-range fire system. Means it is not the precision system which have a very low areas to cover and not very long range missile, rather it is strategic mid-range missile. And this SM-6 missile is integrated into the Typhon serve to primarily as a short-range ballistic missile capable of targeting land-based as well as the maritime assets like navy, submarines, etc. It can also fire the Tomahawk land attack missiles, which is a maneuverable cruise missile. Cruise missiles are those kind of missiles which are self-propelled, and these are unmanned vehicles. They do not have to maneuver in its path, and they will be able to deliver the warhead or the payload to the target over long distance without being maneuverable in the path itself. And this full Typhon weapon system battery comprises 4 launchers, a common command post, and reload and support vehicles, all on trailers. All this much of details are not required. Generally, why I have taken this topic is because of the fact that once UPSC has asked about the Iron Dome, that which this is related to which particular country. They have asked about the THAAD system, that is related to which particular country. So there might be one questions in the prelims exam that Typhon missile system is related to which particular country. Probably they will not ask much of the detail. You people tell me that Iron Dome is the defense system of which country and THAAD is the defense system of which country in the comment box. This Tomahawk missile is a US made long range cruise missile which is used for deep land attack warfare, but here it is being used for the mid range attacks, right? And it will be launched from a ship or submarine and deliver its warhead precisely to a target at a long range. And majorly it is being used by the US Navy. This is all from today's analysis. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.